And when she started having the Holy Ghost jumping, she would kick her leg off. And so I didn't want the Holy Ghost.
There's a direct connection between your creativity and your spirituality.
Musicians, we think different. We hear different.
A soul of a poet is a mirror of the world.
All I heard was the music. I don't remember not one sermon.
The only thing is left for the musicians to participate in church is this congregational worship.
He's like, man, Rich, this cocaine, try it. I'm like, heck no, I ain't trying that stuff.
That's my pain and struggle.
And he said, Richard, try it. It'll make you play better.
A lot of people are probably not going to like this, but we go to church today and all we hear is this hallelujah songs.
And that's when I prayed to the Lord. And I said, Lord, if you get me out of this, I would never do drugs again.
Hi, my name is Roman Vysochin. I'm a musician, composer, and artist. Thank you so much for tuning in into my podcast. This podcast is for anybody who is creative and wants to grow. I believe that art is one of the most beautiful gifts that God gave to us. And I also believe that this journey was never meant to be walked alone. That's why I want to invite you to a community of people who are on the same journey, creating, learning, growing, and spreading the kingdom of God through art. I believe that conversation is one of the most powerful ways for us to connect, learn from each other, get inspired, and grow together. My guest today is Richard Brown. Richard is a phenomenal bass player, a husband, a dad, a grandpa, and one of the coolest human beings I've ever known. He grew up in Richmond, California, surrounded by an incredible community of musicians in the San Francisco Bay Area. Later, he worked with artists such as Sheila E, Michael Escovedo, Juan Escovedo, Sheena Easton, and shared the stage with Yolanda Adams, Ray Parker Jr., Michael Cooper, Kevon Edmonds, and many others. In the late 80s, he moved to Sacramento, and for the past 24 years, he has been the bass player and music director for the nationally recognized award-winning entertainment band, Hip Service. In this episode, we talk about his early years in the Bay Area, his musical journey, faith, challenges, struggles, his battle with cocaine addiction, and what, or rather who, saved his life. We also talk about the challenges we face today as Christian artists in the church and what we can do about them. Richard, welcome to Romansroom. Lord, thanks so much for this beautiful day, this summer day that we get to enjoy. Thank you so much that your mercy renewed this morning for us, Lord.
Yes, Lord.
Thank you that you have this crazy, unconditional love for us where your word says that everything that we've done in the past, you don't even remember. Just help us to embrace that. Help us to receive that.
Yes.
In your name we pray, amen.
Amen, amen.
All right, well, it's super great to have you here. Welcome to Romansroom podcast. You remember that before I even started this whole thing, I called you and I asked you to be part of this.
Yes.
And I was excited, genuinely, and this is really cool. I'm stoked.
Now, I am too, Roman. I really appreciate you even asking me, because, we've been friends for a long time, fellow musicians, and I respect you to the highest, man. Really. You and your beautiful family, just everything that you do, man. And this is awesome. This is beautiful. I'm glad that you are actually doing something like this, because it fits you perfectly, Roman. This is who you are.
Thank you, man.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you asked me this question. You said, why do I do this? Why did I start this podcast? Why did I start this podcast? Well, I believe that the community of artistic people, community of artists, but who are also believers, is a very special kind. It's not just the regular kind. And even like in the Bible, of course, we like, when we read the Old Testament, there's something about Levites, that they had a designated stuff, they were not in the same terms.
That's right. That's right.
And I believe that today in America, the community of Christian musicians is suffering.
Yeah.
Is suffering, is struggling, and I want to be one of those people who is helping to build a community of people who are, in my opinion, lost at this moment. Like I know, I personally, me, I hang out with people. Right. I hang out with different people, and I'm a people person. People know me for that. And I like this in Eastern Europe. We have this term. It's like a average temperature. Like I know the average temperature. Like when you're when you're in a hospital, you're like, what's the average temperature of the floor?
Right.
Kind of how we say it.
Right.
And I see a lot of discouragement. I see a lot of isolation. I see a lot of musicians in church being discouraged and isolated. I also see that I feel like at this moment, and I'm speaking about modern American church. This is, and I've done some traveling, with Lincoln Brewster and other Christian artists. I've played in multiple churches in America the last 20 years or so. And what I see today is the only thing is left for the musicians to participate in church is this congregational worship. That's all we have for people. So like, I feel like if you are, if you're an artist, you come to church, you become a believer, or you come back. And you're like, all right, I have this gift. How do I use it? And I feel like the only thing the church offers now is like, okay, we have this worship team. Okay. And then you either join the worship team, or you're like, okay, I don't feel like joining the worship team because maybe there are reasons, and I want to talk about those reasons. But it's not a great fit for everybody.
That's right.
Wouldn't you agree? Like,
yes, I agree, 100%.
And I feel like what musicians are hearing after that moment, when they're like, okay, so you don't want to you don't want to join the worship team, then what? Well, then nothing. Okay, and I have a passion, I have a pain before I have the passion. I have that pain, and I have it bothers me. It bothers me, and I go like, what do I do? Just like walk around and wish that something changes one day, or I could contribute to this. Somehow I could. So this is the main reason why I started this podcast. I want to serve the community of Christian musicians. I want to build this community, build this atmosphere, build this platform, whatever you call it, to this environment that we can come to and hear and see that every one of us is a real person with real struggles, with real life.
That's right.
And
that's right.
There's another thing. There's a phrase by this Eastern European classic, and it's actually he's repeating what Aristotle or Plato said. It's just rephrasing it. It says, I'll quote it. It says, I'm translating it from Russian though. It says a soul of a poet is a mirror of the world.
It make a lot of sense.
A soul of an artist is a mirror of the world.
That is awesome. That is, never thought of it that way. But it's right. It's true.
So the way artists feel the world, what's happening in the world, is different. Is stronger, more colorful, or more discouraging. It's like enhanced.
Yes.
This crazy experience. Yeah. So my pain, my prayer, and my passion, and my desire is just to go, okay, instead of us having this negative feeling about all of this, and instead of us expecting the church to magically change and start serving us in that aspect, instead of that, just to go, wait, like, look around, what do you have, who do you have, let's help ourselves in a way.
Musicians, we think different, you know. We hear different. You know what I'm saying? You know, when it comes to our art, we, you know, like being a musician all my life. I mean, I don't remember even not being a musician. You know, starting off at the age of 4 and 5 years old. That's always been my dream. You know, I grew up during a time where you have the Beatles on your shirt. I watched the Beatles as a little kid on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I remember watching the newscast of the Beatles coming to America and getting off the plane and watching all these girls screaming and crying, hanging on to a fence.
That's crazy.
I knew that's what I wanted to be. You know, I knew that's what I wanted to be, you know, and just growing up, listening to music, you know, being in a big family of musicians, that's what I want to be. But I also know that by being a musician all my life, I think differently. I hear different. You know what I'm saying? I always wonder if everyone hear the same thing I'm hearing when I listen to music. Do you? I'm like, are they hearing what I'm hearing? You know, because I feel it differently. I might move differently.
Are they feeling what you feel?
Yeah. Are they feeling what I'm feeling? You know? And I've always asked that question. I can be driving in the car, listen to a song. I'm like, I wonder if everybody hear it like this. How do people... I have no idea, Roman, on how the majority of the people in the world hear music. Do they hear it like I hear it, or like how you hear it?
Same here. Same here.
You know?
You know, it's the hardest thing to me in church. The hardest thing for me in church, to go to a men's conference or a men's whatever retreat, men's service, and when some kind of pastor that's like, looks like, you know, this dude, this kind of, and he goes, yeah, you know, like normally this is like a normal dude. This is how we feel. And I go like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Or like he would say, yeah, like normally, like, you know, we come home from work and like our wife would ask us something and we're like, I'm like, that's not me, you know, and
right.
And overall, that feeling that you have in church or in a small group, when you feel like these people, they're like normal, quote unquote, and I'm this whatever weird artist. By now, I realized, and I think I finally realized that I'm not like that. This is not just me. This is not just me. This is all of us. This is this community of artistic people. God created us differently, like you said. We hear different, we feel different, we see different. I heard that psychologists now have this new term. They call it highly sensitive people at HSP. It's like it's its own thing. It's its own category. They're saying that there's about I think it's about like 15% of the population are like that, and artists
That's
fit.
interesting.
Most artists fit in this whole category of people, and the highly sensitive people or hypersensitive people, and when I started reading, I started looking into that, reading about what actually means. I'm like, okay, this explains everything. you know.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
But you know what's crazy? When I was studying it, this psychologist said when they asked artists, like, would you rather, like, if you had a choice, would you stay this way, or you would go like back to normal, like, or like not back to normal, but like actually, like, you know, we magically, you know, become one of the average people, and they said when they asked those questions, they're like, wait, before you answer, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. If you magically become a person who's not highly sensitive, you will not feel anything the way you're feeling it now. Anything. And they're like, what do you mean anything? Anything. Food, sex, any feeling, any excitement, any time that you're feeling like awesome, that's going to be like 55% of that feeling. And those artists like, no,
Yeah,
no.
But why is that though? Why?
It has a lot to do with the nervous system too. It's like they're saying that the nervous system of the highly sensitive people is this whole different thing. And we're feeling everything there. When you go to a favorite restaurant, when you're enjoying your favorite dish, those people, the average people, or I don't like to call people average people, that's kind of mean. The people who are not highly sensitive, that's not how they're feeling. That's not what they're feeling.
Wow, that's interesting.
They're not enjoying that taste like you are.
You know, that's interesting.
It's not just music. Like beauty of the nature. But now, like, think about it. Like, when I heard that, it made me thinking about that like crazy. And then when I started watching people, and I kind of started getting it. Like, you go to like, you know, some beautiful place, nature wise. You see a lot of people like, whatever. They're not feeling it, you know. Like one of my favorite things to do. When I was a teenager, and when I became Christian, I remember like I got this kind of, I don't know, habit. I don't know what to call it. I would go outside, and every time when there was a beautiful sunset, I would look at the sunset. I'd stop, and I'll say, God, you're such an amazing artist, and the colors that you like came up with, and the shapes of those clouds, everything I'm seeing right now, I go, God, like, I feel like most people like don't really care about it. Like, it's like, you know, people go to a museum and they just walk by a beautiful painting, and I go, God, like, I'm actually stopping and, hey, great job.
Yeah.
You know, just like, God, like, as an artist, like, I just want to, you know, not just in a religious way, I give you praise, like, not just like, God, like, I acknowledge, I see this is awesome.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And yeah, man, so it's crazy.
Actually, yeah, because that's how I feel. I feel the same way. I can pull up to my house and just stop. I'm sitting up here probably looking crazy to my neighbors because I'm sitting up. I pull up in my driveway and I just stare at the house, stare at my yard, and just praise God for blessing me and my family with such a beautiful home, and to understand how far He brung me. You know, someone statistically shouldn't be where I'm at right now, statistically,
right,
because of the choices that I made in life years ago. You know, that whole thing. You know, the music, and I know I'm changing subjects. I mean,
and that's fine. We'll go there.
You know,
we'll go there.
Yeah. But you know, just over the years, just seeing the blessing what God have done for me, just pulling up in my driveway. You know, from being a young musician, traveling, playing with some of the most amazing musicians, but also having a dark side of getting involved, doing drugs, and just falling away, from Christianity. You know what I mean? I didn't really, even though I grew up in the church, I grew up as a little kid. My family, I had a church, went to a church where all my family members, so many of them was musicians. I'll tell you the story about that.
That's
It's
crazy.
incredible, But I remember as a kid going to the church and just was so blown away by my relatives. I have one of my relatives named Levi Caesar, which he's an incredible guitar player, who was 7 years old at my church. 7-year-old lead guitar jamming like he was a grown man. And I was just blown away just by, my relatives. But there was one thing I remember the most is remembering every song, remembering how it made me feel, how the music, made me feel, even though when I was a little kid, I couldn't play. But now, if I heard those songs now, I can play exactly those songs that I never played before, but I heard it, it got into my spirit, But one thing I can tell you, Roman, all I heard was the music. I don't remember not one sermon, not one, when I was a kid growing up in church. And I grew up, being at church sometime 3 days a week, but as a kid, I went to church because I had such amazing relatives that was musicians. And I went to church as a little kid to hear the music and to look at my cousin play bass. I have a cousin named Eddie who was a child prodigy on bass guitar. Funky as man.
Let me interrupt you right there, because you said something crazy. You said something huge. You said you remember the songs, you remember this music. You didn't even say songs, didn't you? You said music.
Yes.
And you said, but you can't remember any sermon.
Not
sermon.
one.
You know that this is a famous American phrase, some kind of pastor said that preach all the time, and if necessary, use words. Remember that band Delirious?
Yeah.
Yeah, Martin Smith. It was actually when I moved to United States. My story is also crazy. I had no idea that I would be like playing with any Christian artist or anything like this. Actually, I was just it's a whole other story. But I remember when I thought about once. I'm like, okay, if I would like die to play with somebody, some kind of Christian artist, who would that be? And I thought about two guys, Israel Houghton and Martin Smith, and I actually shared stage with both by now, and it was just kind of crazy. But with Martin, when I played a full concert, actually more than one. Well, a full concert and a few weekend services at Bayside. But when we were spending time together, and I remember talking to him, and he said this very interesting thing. He said, us Christians, most of us forgot that music on itself, on its own, has such crazy power that, but because we forgot about it, we trying to help it with the words too much. Mm-hmm. We're like making it wordy. Like he's like, listen to those contemporary Christian songs. Like there's so many words and words and words and words, mm-hmm. and like we treat it. It's like we treat it like it's like instead of treating it as like a nuclear power, we're like, yeah, this needs help.
Right.
we're trying to help it, like, which is just kind of crazy, and that's crazy. That's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
That music, and another example is when we're reading Psalms and we're reading the story when Saul was possessed with the bad spirits.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say anything about David singing Christian songs to him.
No.
It doesn't say
It don't say
anything.
that. It don't say that he was singing either.
Exactly.
It said he was playing his harp. It said that he was playing the same type of music that he played at home in his backyard after he was tending the sheep. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He was a musician. He was a, is it called a harpist? Someone that actually play a harp. But he was great, a great musician.
Skillful. That's what the Bible says. Skillful.
Skillful. And I haven't seen not one time where they said he was singing words.
Right.
Nowhere.
Okay, let's go back to your childhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Talk about your childhood. What was it like?
My childhood, I grew up, with 3 siblings. We are all a year apart. And we grew up in Richmond, California, in this amazing village called Parkchester Village. Parkchester Village was one of the first areas where African Americans was able to purchase homes back in the 50s, in the 60s. The village was created for everyone to be able to buy homes at a great price. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So majority of the people that purchased homes in that village were very professional. You had a lot of doctors, attorneys, machinists, mechanics, just had everyone. And everyone was homeowners. And my dad, he purchased his home, I think he had to be around 25 years old, or 30 years old. When he purchased his first home, he was in the Navy. So he bought a home in this little village. And where we grew up at, it was, I grew up in a Christian home. All my brothers and sisters, I was the only musician in my family. But my mom and dad, they took us to church. It was how can I put it? It was a great area. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, quote unquote, like when people hear that I came from Richmond, California.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They always like, wow, that
especially
place,
now.
It's bad out there. I'm like, that's where I grew up at in Parkchester Village. It was an area where kids played together. There was nothing crazy out there. Mm-hmm. It was one of those places where you can go ride your bike, you can play outside. We didn't have any, at that time, it wasn't any parks or anything like that. So we had, each street had their own sports team, so we played sports with each other. It was a nice place to live. I didn't know any better. You know what I mean? And so it wasn't any fighting or
gang style.
Gang style, none of that in Parkchester Village. And I remember as a kid, like I say, growing up and going to church. My family had a church, in North Richmond. And it was all musical. My aunt, her name is Dorothy Morrison. And you probably remember the song. It's an old song that was created back in the 60s by Edwin Hawkins singers called Oh Happy Day.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, of course. It's one of the greatest legendary gospel song of all time. That was my cousin. I mean, my aunt.
That's great.
And she had a bunch of siblings, and all of them, we all went to the same church. That was, my family. And so watching them, that's why I'm a musician now, But growing up, like I say, growing up in Richmond, it was beautiful. Beautiful being in Portchester Village. My mom was she worked in the medical field. She was the EKG tech. My dad was a machinist. Growing up, he would go to work, but also he was going to school. And I didn't even realize that my dad had went to school and got a bachelor's. Never knew it until after he passed away.
Wow.
And he passed away in 2022. Didn't know it. Didn't know it until after he passed away, and I went through all his, the paperwork, and I'm like, what? And he also wrote songs. I didn't even know that he was a writer, but he said he didn't want, he really didn't want to tell me. I knew about him writing music later, but he didn't want to tell me because, he knew the music business was a, like a tough business, because seeing my relatives,
Wow, so he was hiding it from you to protect you from it.
Yeah, yes. But see, but the thing is, Roman, music have always been my life. I wasn't a great student as a little kid. You know what I'm saying? I struggled with math. I struggled with English. And I also struggled, had a speech problem when I was a little kid, And it even, still now, it kind of make me nervous to talk because I always had a speech problem just growing up, So I forced myself.
So was the music is the only genre of art that you were exposed to when you were a kid, or there were also other genres of art that you encountered in an early age?
Music was it. Of course, we played sports. I played baseball as a kid, football as a kid. I ran track, but I was so tiny. I was a little bitty kid, where I couldn't play tackle football. I played flag, but music was my protector. Music was something that made me different, even though I didn't realize I was different. But music, people like neighbors, everybody know me as a musician ever since I was a little kid. I would carry around a guitar, I started off playing guitar. My aunt, the same aunt that taught my cousins, Levi Caesar. Levi Caesar is a guitar player. He played with Prince for about 10 years, Like I say, I have a cousin named Eddie that was an amazing bass player. And his mentor was Larry Graham, from Graham
That's
Central
crazy.
Station. And my cousin Dorothy, I also had a cousin, his name was Jerry Combs, who was an amazing singer. He was part of that stage play in 1969, a play called Hair, that was very popular back in the 60s, doing the time when it hit hippies and, so, it was always had that a part of my life, and that's what I wanted to do.
Let me ask you two questions.
Mm-hmm.
One of them probably is going to be easier, and another one is where I feel like there's a lot of, not like controversy, but I hear a lot of different answers to that, kind of like polar opposite. First question is, correct me if I'm wrong, when you were just saying about music was your protector, music was something that everything that you said, would you say that music is part of your identity?
Yes.
Okay. And
100%.
Okay. And then second question is, what would you say to this phrase that I hear in churches a lot, that our identity must be only in Christ? What does it mean?
I disagree. I disagree. I mean, my identity, Richard Brown, of course, I'm a Christian, I have been redeemed, I have been saved, I thank God. But I'm a musician. That's who I am. Period. Whether I'm a Christian or not, I'll still be a musician. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Okay, here's the second question that always comes with it. Okay, but what if you lost your arms and legs and hands and you couldn't play? Where would be your identity?
It would still be music.
In what sense?
I would find another way to be able to make music, create music, enjoy music, whether I'm singing, it would always be a part of me, I just graduated from Bible seminary school, and people always ask me, so are you going to be a minister now? Why did you decide to go to Bible college? I decided years ago to go to Bible study, the Bible college, to learn more about the Bible. The questions that I have about the Bible, I want to be able to go to some homeless shelter, seeing people on the streets. I would like to be able to tell them about Jesus. Let them know that you are loved. I always wanted to just be able to help someone, just like when Jesus helped the blind man, or the cripple, someone that was outcast, from our society.
I wanna dig deeper into that one thing that we talked about. Let's go back to the identity thing.
Okay.
So you said that your music is part of your identity.
Yeah. Yes.
The popular question that I heard from Christian communities, especially from pastors, is like, well, I have to be careful with that because that could become an idol. Where do you feel like that fine line is? And what does it mean to you? Does it mean anything to you?
I disagree. And maybe with some people, but for me, for Richard Brown, music is who I am. Music is part of my life. Music is my identity, when I met Angela Brown, she was sitting in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I wasn't a musician, I never would have met the diamond that I have. I wouldn't have the kids that I have. I wouldn't have the grandkids that I have. My life wouldn't be, you would not even know me, Roman. You know what I mean? You know, so everything about me, you know, just like, you know, the church that I played for many, many years, you know, thousands of people, played for so many different places, touring, just, that's who I am. People know me by Richard Brown, great smile, you know, you know, musician, serious about his musicianship.
One of my favorite pastors and Christian writers, he's a pastor of this church called Mosaic, and it's LA downtown, like right in Hollywood Boulevard, I think now. He says this very interesting thing. He gets criticized by a lot of Christians for that, but he says that there's a direct connection between your creativity and your spirituality. What do you feel? How do you feel about that? He says that if you're not being creative, there's something wrong with you spiritually. He says that God, his main, like if God had a job title, it would be a creator. He creates. And he says that we're created not only by his image, which is like when people say, how would God, if I see God, how he'd look? Well, he doesn't look like elephant. He looks like you. He looks like a human, and he created us after his image.
In his image.
But his likeness is, and that's what he's trying to unfold. He goes, that's exactly what I mean by that. He says, when we're creating, that's the moment when we're being the closest to God. I feel like every time I'm moving away from creativity, I'm entering that kingdom of anxiety. I feel like I have a theory that I kind of came up with. I feel like us, highly sensitive people, creative people, I feel like if we're not using our creativity to, you know, to create, to work on something amazing, that energy, that same resource that we have, this like nuclear power thing goes, okay, so you're not giving me that assignment. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna be creative about all kinds of bad stuff, bad consequences, bad future, bad stuff. I feel like my mind goes, if I'm not creative, if you're not putting me to work, if I'm not creative, I'm going to be crazy creative about all kinds of bad outcomes and all those like sources of anxiety. That's the connection that I experienced in my life. That's the kind of theory that I came up with. So I feel like for us, for artists, like if we're not in the middle, if we're not practicing this, if we're not being creative, we all suffer from anxiety. We all we have is those like bad, negative, pessimistic vibes, like about the future and our country and all kinds of stuff. Like your mind is like, all right, let's like, do you experience anything like that?
Yeah, I do. You know, and it's so it's different. I guess everyone have it differently. You know, it's weird because sometimes I feel, I don't want to say guilty, but frustrated when I don't create. I feel like, I'm wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sitting up here wasting my time looking at TV or listening to the news or something that I can't change. I can't
Right.
change nothing I
Right.
hear on the news.
Right.
There's nothing I can do about what is going on in the news and what people feel, or even when I watch the news, and I think about that all the time. My anxiety, I guess, is when I'm not doing music. I don't even know if it is anxiety, Roman. Because I never been diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
It's with anxiety.
Well,
I'm
the
not
diagnosis is a new thing.
right.
I mean, diagnose. I'm a little bit skeptical about those old. Like I hear there's this doctor. This is her name is Karen Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
She's a neuroscientist, psychiatrist, psychologist. I think she has like 2 PhDs, but she's a devoted Christian woman. She says that a lot of these things, a lot of these labels that we have now, all this ADHD, OCD,
Mm-hmm.
OCD plus and ultra. She goes, a lot of those, like she says that there's this thing that they bring to school, some kind of 18 question, the questionnaire, and she goes, it's a joke when we give it to our kids and say, okay, you answered those 18 questions, you have OCD. She's like, it's a joke. She says, like, probably 80% of those guys who are diagnosed.
Is that what they do in schools now?
That's what she said. She said that there's some kind of thing, some kind of questionnaire that they can bring to school, and then and now people have this label. So this is what I have, and she says it's a lot more complex, and but she believes that. Maybe I don't know if a majority, but a huge percentage of people that were diagnosed with something, it's very subjective.
Mm-hmm.
It's very subjective. Matter of fact, have you heard the statistics that so every medical field right now, every single medical field, any like you like listed, cardiology,
Mm-hmm.
any medical field. If you take the last 200 years, there's progress, huge progress. 200
Right,
years ago,
right,
they didn't
right.
have so
Of
many
course.
information,
Of
so
course.
much, a lot of stuff, except one. The mental health is the only medical field that is doing the opposite of progress. Opposite.
Yeah,
They,
isn't it?
every year they when they meet on those like forums, international,
Isn't that
global,
something?
they're saying that we just we just don't know what's going on. It's what's the opposite of progress? Regress.
Roman, I agree. And
So to finish that thought, what's the craziest thing that they're saying? I recently heard that they're saying that when they meet for those forums, one of those crazy respected psychiatrists, he said that the problem now is in Europe we use Celsius, or we can say they use Celsius because I've been living here for 25 years. So, but I grew up using Celsius, and there's this. You heard of 36.6, right?
Mm-hmm.
36.6 is that right temperature for a human body. This is when we say you have a normal temperature.
Mm-hmm.
He says the scary thing with mental health now, and he says the crazy thing with mental health now globally, that we don't know what 36.6 means mentally. We don't know. We used to.
Mm-hmm.
And now we don't really know what it means. So they go, let's say there's a person that like, we think that person is weird.
Mm-hmm.
We think that person is, but why do we, like, why do we think that person is weird? It's just because that person like doesn't fit this like society, this like average, some standards that like the world created now. Do we have that right to say that that person is weird? Well, if we now gonna apply that same rule and same measure to any biblical character,
Right.
okay, let me ask you this question. How many companies do you know that would hire David? Would David, the King David, would I like, my answer is most American companies would say that that person has very low emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
That person's crazy. That person, when that person wants to show God how he's feeling, he's getting naked and dancing, and his wife is going, "Hey, you're a king. You can't do this."
They be saying he's crazy.
So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what they're saying. They're saying that this is the one of the main problems that this whole mental health, all those diagnoses, all that stuff is getting worse.
Yeah.
It's just the world that we're living now is so crazy.
Yes.
That we can't really, we lost that 36.6 thing. We lost that norm.
Yeah.
We don't even know. We're trying to say like, hey, we're gonna help you. Like, with, church tries to say, yeah, we're gonna with what?
But I think, Roman, I think, we as a society have done it to ourselves. And the reason why is because we are getting so smart with inventing, even like with AI, but the social media, the stuff that you can see, YouTube, Instagram, people just being so addicted to social media, it has taken a lot from us. And I think, that's one reason that we are having so many mental issues, because we are constantly looking at social media just like it's part of our life. It's almost like food. Sometimes you can't even open up your phone, and I'm talking about all of us. So I'll pick up my phone, and first thing I click on, Facebook. I don't have I have Instagram, but I never look at Instagram because I never really got into Instagram, but I can get on Facebook or LinkedIn, just see some of the businesses and stuff like that. But it's so addicting. It's so addicting. There's no difference between social media and back in the day when I got hooked to crack. It was something, I hated doing drugs, but whenever I had money coming, my stomach, I can feel it in my stomach, and I would go get it, even though I didn't like it. That's how I feel about social media, and I think in our society, here in America, I don't know about, in Europe or in Russia or any other country, if social media is such a big thing, as it is here in the United States. You can look up on Facebook, and it can be so deceiving to me, because people can use social media to make themselves feel good. To say, well, look what I'm doing, or this is what I did, or, I'm doing such a great job. I know people that have social media said that, to make it seem like they're having an amazing life, but really their life is not so great,
Okay, let's go there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a kid, grew up in a Christian home.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like your family, your parents were doing something great with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
You...
Well, let me correct you. My parents was Christians, but they wasn't, my parents was young when they had us, so they wasn't the type of parents that, oh, you're going to go to church and you're going to do this and this and that. My parents was also young and partiers.
Mm-hmm.
They would drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes,
And go to church.
say cuss words and stuff like that.
And go to church?
Every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
I went to church more than my parents because I went to church because I had musician family members. I went to church. I couldn't wait. I would get rides from my cousin that lived down the street to take me to church, or my uncle. So my parents, we grew up in a. How can I say it? A semi-Christian home.
All right. All right, yeah.
It wasn't like. It was different. It was different. My family, I didn't grow up where you can only listen to that gospel music because that other music is the devil music.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, all the music that's inside me now is from my parents. My mother would take us to the record store. I did say record store. Every Friday and buy the top 40 records of 45, whether it was Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, the Motown, the Philly Sound, Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, Sam Cooke, the Jackson 5, the music, the soul music, R&B, but also Elton John, the Beatles, you know what I'm saying? And I remember as a little kid going to Christian homes where the parents would not let their kids listen to secular music. That's not how I grew up. So when I say that my parents, they were Christians, but it wasn't a strict Christian home.
Okay.
Period.
So you're growing up.
Mm-hmm.
You're obsessed with music, if I can say
Yes.
that. Okay. And then what happens? How does this young Richard Brown, how does that person gets to drugs?
I was afraid of drugs because my mother, also was a social worker. And she worked in this place, this area, it was North Richmond. This place, it was like a Shields Reeds Park. But before she would go to work, she would take us to the areas in Richmond where there were drug addicts.
Mm-hmm.
People laying around, drunk. You see needles and all that kind of stuff. So growing up, whenever I thought about drugs, that's what I thought about.
Right.
So I didn't do it. I was afraid of drugs. I was afraid of being on the streets, laying down, in my own urine and stuff like that. I saw stuff like that. So I was afraid. So when I was a young teenager, bass player, all I hung around with was musicians in high school, and we didn't think about drugs at all. All we thought about is being the best band, and we rehearsed every day. So I wasn't in that life. But the biggest mistake I think I ever made, we had hired, we had got these older guys in our band. And one of the guys, we was on our way to Sacramento to do a gig. And I used to smoke cigarettes, Roman. You know, I would smoke marijuana every now and then, but I didn't like smoking marijuana because for some reason my eyes got redder than everybody else's eyes. You know, so, and I didn't like the girls saying, Richard, you look high. So I didn't smoke, I didn't indulge, you know, but I smoked cigarettes. And one day, one of the guys that we had hired in our band, because it was another band of older guys, and we really respected these guys. They were so good. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to add a horn section in our band. We wanted to get some more experienced musician. And one of the musicians was smoking a cigarette, and he had something in his cigarette. Mm-hmm. And I was smelling it. I'm like, man, what is that?
What's that flavor?
He had put cocaine in his cigarette. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, what is that you smoking? He's like, man, Rich, this cocaine, try it. I'm like, heck no, I ain't trying that stuff. And this, I'm telling you, Satan works in ways, boy, I'm telling you. He would use something that you can be insecure about. And he said, Richard, try it. It'll make you play better. I was an insecure musician. I'm like, make me play better? What do you mean? And I took a puff, Roman, I did not feel it at all. I had no idea why would people even do this drug. I'm like, why would anybody? I don't feel this. So it opened up a door of drugs. Because now, whenever someone would have it out, I would do it because it didn't affect me. That's how Satan opened up the door for me to get addicted to drugs. So now I started, right after that, I started working at a shoe store. And one of the guys that we hired at the shoe store, it was all musicians at the shoe store. One of the guys that got hired with us, he used to sell it. So we would, buy like the package of powder cocaine, and just sniffing and doing it. And then after a while, Roman, I had one of my friends, he wanted to buy some cocaine, and we drove to this guy's house in Berkeley and to go purchase some. And we went up in his apartment. I was sitting up in his apartment, and he was cooking something up. I had no idea what he was cooking up, but come to find out he was cooking cocaine. Basically, back then it was called freebase, and it would separate the pure cocaine from the cut, and they would cook it up, and it would turn into a rock. And he called us in, like, oh, man, why don't you try this? And since it was cocaine, I wasn't afraid of it. I was not afraid of it. And so they cut it up and put it on a pipe. And I took a puff. And it was one of the most crazy feeling I ever had in my life. That's how I got hooked to drugs. And I was a suit-wearing musician playing all over the place. I worked with Sheila E, during that time, Sheena Easton. I didn't do anything around other people. You know what I mean? But I just got hooked to a drug that was not, put it this way, you could not find that drug in the hood or somewhere like, okay, where I grew up in Portchester. That drug was nowhere around. But all of a sudden, that drug became very, it came into the village.
Mm-hmm.
And then people got hooked to that drug. And they changed the name instead of calling it, cocaine, powder cocaine. They changed the name to crack.
Mm-hmm.
You heard the name crack.
Right.
And basically what crack was rock cocaine, and they called it crack because when you put it on a pipe and you light it, it cracked. It's like a crackle noise. So that's how that name became. And so what they did, what happened was there was so much drugs in the neighborhood, they changed the name to crack. It became crack instead of cocaine. Yeah.
So from I'm scared of drugs to a guy who you look up to musically, and that person is older than you,
Yes.
is telling you this simple lie.
Yes.
He says, when you try this, you'll play better.
Yes.
And instantly, when that person says this, you give up your whole belief system, your paradigm.
Yes.
I'm a parent of 3 boys, and I'm a C- dad. I don't I grew up in a broken home, and I never had a example of great parenting, and I learn as I go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying my best, and one of the things that I'm trying to communicate to my kids now, I go, guys, my kids, and my oldest, he's not into music at all. You met him, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
You met him when he was a year, 2 years old.
Yeah.
But he's not into music that much. And Josh, my second one, is getting there. He's into guitar now. And but what I'm trying to communicate to them, I say, guys, when you're, they're teenagers, 2 of them. I go, when I was a teenager, whatever my dad was doing would not inspire me. Like when you're a teenager, your parents not gonna inspire you, right? Like you don't listen to your parents. You're smarter than them. You're
right.
You're looking at what they're doing wrong. You don't care. You have no idea what it costs them to even keep up with the reality and the jobs and everything. You don't acknowledge. You don't value any of that. You're stupid, actually.
Right.
Well, I was for sure. And and what I'm trying to tell my kids, I go, guys, I don't expect you to listen to me in that sense, to get inspired by me, or to go, oh yeah, our dad is a cool guy, he's a musician, whatever. He knows Richard Brown. But what I'm trying to tell them, I'm like, guys, what's crucial now, even though you're not into me, you're not into me and mom, you have to understand something. Most kids, most teenagers don't have this crazy strong core, I don't know how to, this root that when you read the Steve Jobs biography, or Steve Jobs started working at Hewlett Packard when he was 12.
Mm-hmm.
Not every kid is like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not every kid has this very, very rare, unique source of power that can help them go against the crowd. The teenagers, right? They're they're moving towards nothing. A lot of them are just going with the flow, and not that many teenagers have this very, very, very strong rude when that power when they're powerful enough to go against the crowd. And I tell them, guys, like my prayer for you is every day. My prayer is that you find somebody who's slightly older or a lot older, but a person that you look up to, person that you listen to,
A mentor.
a mentor, person that you open up to, person that is becoming that locomotive. Is that what it's called? The train, the person that you get on that train, and person that will help you to go get somewhere great. Because if you don't find that person, then Satan's gonna send you that guy. Somebody else. The guy that was also be slightly older. You look up to that guy in this different way, maybe like in your case, like musically, and that person, and that person will determine your future. You know, that kind of relationship can determine, lead you to really wrong places. And to me, I had both of these examples in my life when I was a teenager. Because growing up in a broken home, I mean, the last thing I would think about was to look up to my dad, because they divorced, and I mean, when I'm older now, like when I know the full story and all the stuff that they've been through, I mean, of course I have a different perspective on all that. But like back then, I just, to me, my parents died for me. Those Christians that say one thing and then they divorce, and to me, okay, that's not the kind of people I want to listen to, right? And so as a teenager, I was basically on my own. I was growing up on my own. I pretty wild. There was I felt like I'm in this wild world, and I have to make my own judgments. I have to, see if I want to trust this person, or if I don't want to trust that person, and stuff like that. And I found two mentors in my life. Well, when I say I found, maybe they found me, or God. And it's very crazy. So one of them was this crazy awesome musician, just like you're describing people that you were next to. He was this insanely talented guitar player. He was blind, and he started playing. He was older. I was probably 15, and he was 26, something like that. And he started playing with a lot of big pop artists. Although he's a blind dude, and if you think about it, especially in Russia, I feel it was in Soviet Union. It was they did a terrible job with the whole handicap world. I feel when I moved to America, first thing that I saw is those designated parking lots and the ramps and all that. Dude, in Russia, they could be I don't know if it's still like that. I hope it's not like that. But I remember a bunch of those buildings, apartment buildings, a 5-story. A person lives on the 5th floor, no elevator, nothing, no ramps, nothing. It's what the heck, how that person survived. Anyway, so, this guy, I met him, and I met him in some kind of, I can't even remember how I met him, but as soon as I started talking to him, he started encouraging me. He's like, dude, you're this talented kid, you have perfect pitch, you can hear, you can, and he basically became my best friend. All of a sudden I lost interest in my, peers and school friends. I'm like, oh, all of these guys are just losers. They're just what are they doing with their lives, right? I'm my friend is this older dude and successful dude. We would the way we would hang out. I would go to some kind of radio station with him, and he would be recording jingles, and I would see famous guys, celebrities, walking by and like doing something. I'm like, what the heck, and all that. And then what he would do, he's the guy who started showing me like all this all the music, like, because like growing up in Russia, I at the first part of my life, I was just exposed to whatever my dad would listen to and stuff, and that would be just like Russian folk, pop, rock music. That's it. And this guy would show me Charlie Parker.
Okay.
This guy would show me Quincy Jones.
Wow.
This guy would show me Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
This guy would show me Chick Corea.
Yeah.
Electric Band, and Bill Evans and Louis Armstrong. And when I heard that,
Yeah.
it changed my life. I'm like, okay, no wonder I was always bored with A minor, like the natural minor scale, and to me, everything died,
Yeah.
like all the and I was in Russia. We had those music schools for children. They're like, I don't know if they were government funded, but it was a 7-year classical school that was like available for anybody. So basically, when I was 7, this is like our parents took all of us to that school. Like, we all finished that school, I think,
Wow.
except my youngest brother. So I did, like, and I was not. They never asked me if I wanted to, but I think when I was 7 or 8, I started this thing, music school. It was like 5 days a week. Like Monday I would have choir, Tuesday I would have piano, which my main instrument. Wednesday I would have ear training, or they call it solfeggio class, and then Thursday it would be musical literature or something like history of music, something like that, and then Friday piano again.
Wow.
5 days a week from age of 7 to for 7 years.
Wow.
So from 7 to 14 or
That's
15.
amazing.
Yeah. So, but what's crazy that it would be mostly classical music. But as soon as I met that guy, classical music died for me. Everything, because I was like, classical music is all like minor scale. This natural minor. That like that's how I felt about classical music when I heard Quincy Jones. And so that's one kind of mentor that I had in my life. But here's what's crazy. Similar to your story, that person played two different roles in my life. On one hand, he was the person who inspired me musically, who would speak into my life, and he would say, you're talented, you're like, and, show me stuff and blah, blah, blah. And he, I think, yeah, he, I can't remember how old I was. I think I was like 15. He would take me to the jazz gigs, and I would start playing like, I don't know, third keyboard, second keyboard, and I had to learn stuff with tape players and rewind and listen and cry because it was hard to learn and all that. Yeah, so that kind of stuff. He did this to me. This is one thing that he did for me, and the second thing, he was an incredibly negative person, just like just a negative spirit overall. Like he was negative about everything, negative about people, country, like how things are. Like he was always like negative, just like criticizing everything.
I met people like that.
Yeah, and just like that person was hurt. Like I was too young to understand that, right. He was just insanely negative, and then some stuff like it would be a random thing. For example, one time we were doing this jazz gig, and this lady, she asked me, "Do you sing?" Like maybe she wanted me to do some BGVs, and I said, and I was like, or she said something. Could you think you could sing the BGV part? And I said, yeah, I can try. And I think I tried it. And then we would like meet with the guy, and he would say, hey, you better decide if you want to play or sing. And just like you told me, like the guy said this thing to you, and you bought it. You believed in it, and I when I heard him saying that, because of the, because I was looking up to him and all, the authority that person had in my life, I instantly started believing that I'm a terrible singer and I should never ever sing. Never ever sing.
Wow.
That it's like that seed that he planted.
Right.
I mean, you won't believe it. Like, instantly, if I would be in church, instantly anywhere I was, I'm like, I'm not singing. I'm not singing. I'm playing, guys.
Yeah.
I play.
Yeah.
I don't sing.
I was the same way.
So, and then there were other things that, other like poison, other stuff that I was getting from that guy, because he became this mentor guy for me. So that one guy and another person that I would say God sent into my life, it was this random pastor. Like, I was in the recording studio with that guy, with that guitar player. We were working on some random music studio, and then randomly this pastor comes by the studio, and he wanted to record some whatever stuff, which was kind of like, he wanted to record some. I have no idea actually what he was doing in the studio, and he saw me. He's like, Roman, and I go like, yeah, how do you know me?
How you know me?
He's like, yeah, you. He's like, I was part of your parents' youth, some youth ministry, and when we were going missionary trips to like Ukrainian villages, they would take you, just like you, when you met my son Adam. My dad would take me when I was like 2 years old to all those missionary trips, and he was always there. So he's like, I remember you. I remember you from you're being a little kid. He's like, you're a musician. You're a great musician, and he's like, come to our church. And that moment, that's the moment when I was super far away from Christianity and everything. I got, after my parents divorced, I got like very, very skeptical about Christianity. Crazy. I stopped believing anybody. Like, I went like, okay, these guys just lie. Those Christians, they just like, they lie. They pretend that they're Christians, but I don't believe. I don't buy that anymore.
Right.
And Lincoln Brewster told me this thing one day. He's like, when I became Christian and when I got depressed for the first time, like when I saw something wrong in church, he's like, I saw a bumper sticker. It said, God, save me from your people. So that's kind of how I felt, in that moment. And he goes, and that guy goes, yeah, come to our church. And I go like, why? Like, do I look like I'm interested in like church? Like, I was
right.
And he goes, no, just come. And he invited me to some kind of music event, and that pastor became this mentor from, like, God used that. Like, when I told you, like, when I'm talking to my kids, I'm like, find somebody. That pastor became this like father figure probably for me. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Figure.
Yes.
Yeah. It's he just saw me. And he just started serving me like crazy. He asked me. He told me like, yeah, join our worship team. And then like a month later, he goes, yeah, now you're a music director. Just you tell everybody what to do. And the worship leader of the church was actually one of like sort of famous Christian artists, and I would like look up to him, like, and then now I'm telling that guy what to do, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Now let's fast forward to the moment when you realize that you're a drug addict and you need help. How soon did that happen, and what was it like?
Well, I knew basically, I was fortunate. The reason why I say that, I was blessed to be able to meet people. You know what I'm saying? I was a young musician that started hanging out with people like Peter Michael Escovedo, Sheila E brother. You know, I worked with him. I worked with a bunch of musicians. Peter Michael, he was more of my mentor, even though he was a year older than me. And he didn't do drugs. He didn't do anything, you know. So it was great to be around, you know, Peter Michael and a bunch of musicians. But once I got out of their world and went back home, I had friends that was in the village that was doing cocaine, crack, you know. So I was living like two different lives.
Okay.
You know, I was working.
That's pretty common, by the way.
Yeah. You know, I was blessed to get involved or be part of the Escovedo family. You know, Sheila E, Sheila Escovedo, and Peter Michael. You know, so I was with them every day. I mean, I was part of the family, so I was in good company. I learned how to be a better musician. You know, I got more serious about my musical skills when I started hanging around or being part of that family. You know, because I was in the clubs where you had Pete Escovedo Orchestra. You know, I'm watching some of the baddest, incredible musicians you can ever lay your eyes on. You know, so I was in good company, but living two different lives. You know, and it was a trip. You know, after I think when I got the gig, okay, I was playing with Sheila. Sheila had left. We had did the demo. We was doing the demo. We did the demo for Prince. But Sheila had got the opportunity to go on tour with Marvin Gaye. So that kind of put her and Peter Michael, that kind of put the band basically on hold, you know, and hanging out in Oakland, and I started hanging out with people doing music, but it was always cocaine, laying on a plate or something, and I would do it, even though I didn't feel it, Roman, you know. But it started getting worse after the Sheena Easton, you know, because I started working with her. After that, and I came back to Oakland, and it started getting worse after I tried crack cocaine. And I knew, because I hated Roman, I hated doing the drug. I couldn't stand it. I hated it. But I was addicted to it. Like I say, I didn't want it until I had money. If I didn't have any money, I wouldn't think about it. I wasn't the type of drug addict that, man, I gotta go find me some money and so I can get this drug. I need it. It ain't like how you see musicians, or not musicians, but drug addicts that is shooting up where they have to have their fix, and, you know, you get the shakes. It wasn't nothing like that, you know. But I basically decided to leave the Bay Area. And I moved to Sacramento, California, where my mother was, running away from the drug, because I knew I didn't want to do it. And I came here to Sacramento in 85. And found it here. Found where I can buy it. And I just felt so bad that here I am in Sacramento, working, wearing a suit, wearing a tie, going to work, because I found a job in Sac. But I was what you call a suit-wearing drug addict. At that time, I wasn't in church. I wasn't listen to church, but I still had it in my mind that, you know, the Lord see me doing this, and if I die, I'm going to hell. You know, I always had that in the back of my mind. That I wasn't saved. I didn't know anything. I really didn't, even though I grew up in a church, I didn't know Jesus. I didn't know the word. All I knew is growing up as a kid in the church, listening to the music, but also seeing people jump up, run around the church, saying they have the Holy Ghost, and I was afraid of the Holy Ghost. I was afraid. I didn't want it. If the Holy Ghost made you act like that, I didn't want it. I remember, they used to, I'm jumping from subject to subject, but this is just something. As a little kid, we all had a mission. All of us, each one of us, every Sunday, had a responsibility to sit by this lady called Mother Sharp. And she had one leg, and she had like a wooden leg.
A prosthetic.
And when she started having the Holy Ghost jumping, she would kick her leg off, and the kids would have to go get her leg and put her leg on. And so I didn't want the Holy Ghost. I didn't want it. You can keep that. But once I moved to Sacramento, and I wasn't basically in the music business or music atmosphere anymore. That was gone. I mean, that was in Oakland. That was the Bay Area. Even though I kept in contact with my friends, my family, the Escovedos, but I had changed my life. And my cousin, who I used to get high with, heard about this place called Teen Challenge Ministry. And he decided to go to Teen Challenge. And I remember he sent me a picture of himself standing there in front of a church with a Holy Bible in his arm. And I hung that picture up in my apartment. That was right after I met Angela. And every time I passed by it, it convicted me. And I would go out and do drugs, come back to my apartment, and I would see that picture. And the last time I got high, it was in 1989. Me and Angela was already together. Angela was 9 months pregnant.
Did she know that you're doing it?
She didn't know. I was an undercover drug addict. She didn't know that I did drugs. She didn't. She probably, ladies know.
She could say something.
Yeah, she probably, sent something. But she was pregnant, and I went out and got high, and that was it. I was so embarrassed, because I had spent my money, and matter of fact, we were staying with my mom at the time. And I had told my mom, this is what did it, Roman. I had told my mom that I owed a dope dealer some money. This is how bad this drug is. Crack cocaine, it was bad. I told my mom that I owed this drug dealer some money. And if I don't give him his money, he was going to come and shoot up her house. My mom gave me her Versatile card, her debit card, told me to go get the money but bring her card back. And I didn't bring her card back. I ripped off my mom. And when I came back home 3 days later, my mom had left and moved out and moved with my sister. But my brother and sister was at my mom's house, and I would never forget. It was a cold, winter, foggy day in Sacramento. And I knocked on the door, and they would not let me in. And either my sister or my brother called the police on me because I was trying to get them to open the door. And I don't know if they called the police or not, but in my mind, I thought they called the police, and I saw some police coming. And so I ran, and there was no trees around, but there were rose bushes in front of the wall of my mother's apartment. I ran and hopped into those bushes. And I said, well, I'm going to have to put my feet up in the bush because they would be able to see my feet. So I hid inside the bush with thorns sticking my hands and all over my body. And that's when I prayed to the Lord. And I said, Lord, if you get me out of this, I would never do drugs again. Please forgive me for my sins, Lord. I am so sorry. I would never do this again. Please help me. I need your help right now. And I was in there for at least 2 hours in this bush. And when I got out of it, the morning came, I got out the bush, and I went and knocked on my sister's door, on my mother's apartment. And my sister told me, she said, Richard, she said, you got to go. She said, you got to go back to the Bay Area. She said, because you can't come back here. And she said, I'm going to give you money enough money to get on the Greyhound bus and go back to our home in Richmond with my daddy. And I knew I didn't want to go back to live with my dad because, my dad was tough. Right? He wasn't going for it. So I said, well, let me call my cousin.
Were they separated?
Yeah, my mom and dad had separated when I turned 18,
Okay.
And so I called my cousin, the one that went to Teen Challenge, and he said, Rich, he said, get on the bus and come to my house. And I got on the bus and went to Oakland to my cousin's apartment. And he was already clean. He went through Teen Challenge. He had finished Teen Challenge. He was so on fire, Everything that came out of his mouth was, he talked about the Lord and, how the Lord saved him and how he feel. And he said, Rich, you need to get into Teen Challenge, And I told him, okay, I would love to. What do I need to do? He said, well, just come to my house and we'll just go to Teen Challenge the next morning or call the Teen Challenge. And I called them. And they said, well, Teen Challenge is a waiting list because there was people was trying to get in, especially during that time when, the crack epidemic and just people was trying to get in there. And the day I called Teen Challenge, that following night, my cousin took me to his church. And I was sitting there at the church, of course, I'm like, I haven't been to church in years. Years. And there was this lady minister that, she was like evangelist where she come to revivals or something like that. And I remember she didn't have no shoes on. And I'm like, what's a woman coming in here, don't have no shoes on, preaching, And then she walked up to me. She said, young man, stand up right now. And I looked at my cousin. I'm like, what? Why this woman? And I went ahead and stood up. And she said, you've been dealing with something, and the Lord told me to come and talk to you. She said that you've been fighting with drug addiction. She said, and that drug spirit is going to leave you today, and raise your hands, son. And I was angry. I was so mad because I'm like, why would my cousin tell people my business, everybody in this church, including the pastor, know that I'm a drug addict? And so but I went ahead, she said, raise your hand. I'm mad, but I raised my hands anyway, And she said, she told me to, of course she had said the sinner's prayer, and I just repeated it. And she said, that drug demon is leaving you today, And so I just, at that moment, gave my life to Christ, but I was still angry at my cousin. And when we got in the car to go home.
We're such humans.
And I'm like, man, why would you tell her my business, man? I would have never did that to you. He said, Richard, I never saw that woman in my life. Nobody in this church, even my pastor, they don't know they don't know nothing about you. He said, that woman, the Lord was speaking to that woman, Richard, and the following day, Roman, I got a call from Teen Challenge. Normally it take up to 6 weeks to get in Teen Challenge. I got a call from Teen Challenge telling me, Richard, you can come to Teen Challenge today. We have a spot open for you. And I could not believe it. And I told my cousin, I'm like, they said I can come today, And when I got the Teen Challenge, before I got the Teen Challenge, of course, I had to catch the BART from Oakland to San Francisco. And I was on the BART, and a man walked up to me, a young guy. He said, man, do you ever smoke? And I had a pack of cigarettes in my pocket. And I gave him the whole entire pack. And when I got the Teen Challenge, it was one of the greatest decisions I could have ever dreamed about in my entire life. I went in 2 weeks before my son Christopher was born. Me and Christopher just graduated from seminary school last Saturday. And Christopher is the only one of my kids that I didn't I wasn't there for his birth, because I was in Teen Challenge at that time, and in Teen Challenge, when you first get in the Teen Challenge, you have no contact with the outside world at all, even your family. Is for 30 days you cannot talk to no one in your family or anything like that. But they let me talk to Angela because she was having a baby. But no, Teen Challenge changed my life. I was there for a whole year. A whole year. And what Teen Challenge was to me, it helped me to learn the truth about the Lord Jesus. Growing up in the church, didn't learn nothing. And so that changed my life, Roman. Then after I graduated Teen Challenge, I ended up getting into a church in Sacramento, First Baptist Tabernacle Church. I had decided, Roman, that secular music, I would never play secular music.
Okay, so I'm trying to imagine a person who's listening to your story.
Mm-hmm.
What changed from the moment that when you said, "I'm not listening to secular music ever again. I'm not playing it ever again," to now, when you can play in church and you can also play in a cover band, what kinds of stuff? What changed?
What changed? It basically, I got talked into playing. I got talked into to cover for a musician that got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ladies that was at my church, she was also like a jazz singer,
Mm-hmm.
and her bass player got sick. And she had called me. She said, "Richard, please, I need you. I can't call no one else. And can you just come and cover for my bass player?" And I'm like, okay, I talked to Angela about it. I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I said, I'm not going to make this no habit because it's not what I want to do. I was in Bible college at that time. You know, I was really deeply into the ministry, not just music. I was, teaching. Matter of fact, I had even did a couple of sermons. But I went ahead and did it. And when I went, basically sitting at home, learning the songs,
Mm-hmm.
getting back into the secular sound and the music, I already knew 80% of the songs because I had played them before. And when I got up there on stage and I felt the audience, and after I went ahead and did the show and I prayed, and in my heart I felt that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I can do this and make extra money for my family by doing this. I'm not drinking. I'm not out there womanizing. I'm not partying. The drug scene is gone. I'm in church. I'm studying the Word. The music that I'm writing, that I'm playing, is not songs that's talking about sex or all that cussing and stuff that's on records now. None of that. These was love songs.
Mm-hmm.
My Girl, just songs that was beautiful songs. And I felt like this is not a sin. Me going out here doing this music, it made me feel so good. I was playing with the singer named Bobby Debs. And then I met some musicians. The drummer was another musician from the church. the keyboard player, this guy, amazing keyboard player named Jimmy Malone, here in Sacramento, blind guy, amazing musician. A guy that I was playing with named Marlon Bowens, may he rest in peace, amazing musician. And I didn't know none of these guys. Great saxophone player, and so after I played that one show, hate to say it, she fired her bass player. And then I ended up getting, she asked me, she said, Richard, can you work with me every Saturday here? And it was this place called Jasmine's Art of Pasta in Old Sacramento. And basically it was like a summer show where we were playing outside and, it was a restaurant. And so many musicians would come to that one place. So I started meeting all kind of musicians from every walk of life. And it just made me feel so good, to be able to be in a music scene playing music. I didn't even think of it as secular music. I just thought of it as music. I would learn whatever songs we had to learn, but I also was learning the songs that I was playing at church. So I was constantly learning music all the time. With the church, the music from the church, I realized that gospel music was more it was harder to play gospel music than it was secular music. Gospel music in the African American church, man, dude, so many hits, so many different. Right. Boy, I'm just telling you,
you have to know how to play. You know what's crazy with white churches, with those like modern churches, it's total opposite.
I know.
It's a total opposite.
I know.
It's a total different challenge.
I know.
It's almost like this: how to keep your sanity.
Play
yes. 2 chords.
Yes. And so going back to the secular music, it was so much easier for me. And then another thing, I was getting paid, even though it wasn't a lot of money, but I was a married man with my little kids. It's Christopher, Timothy, and Nicholas. Timothy was my middle son, the one that passed away, and Angela. And I wasn't making much money on my job, only minimum. So to get that extra money playing at Jasmine's Art of Pasta and seeing just the audience and everybody loving on each other, musicians, meeting all kind of musicians. When the church that I was playing for, I didn't get paid to play in a church, even though, I didn't care. I didn't even know musicians got paid in church. Right. Tell you the truth, I didn't know that. So it just became, doing the secular thing just became a part of my life. And I didn't look at it like this is a sin, this is a bad sin. I looked at it like the Lord gave me talent, blessed me
right there
to be able to play
right there
and to be able to provide for my family. I don't have no degree where I can go and make a lot of money at a job somewhere. I can, get certain jobs, but, I didn't have that. I just had music. And so went through Teen Challenge, finished through Teen Challenge, was in Bible college, deep in the Word, got my foundation of our Lord Jesus Christ.
You're rooted now.
Secular music, what is secular music?
I don't think there's such a thing.
It's not.
There's nowhere in the Bible.
You know what it is? It's music. It make people feel good. It make people happy. You can be going through something tragic in your life, and hear a song that can change your whole feeling. Roman, I can be driving in my car and hear a song that my mom used to play when I was a little kid. And I can hear that song and I can picture where I was with my mother.
Right.
I can hear songs like Sitting on the Dock of the Bay by Otis Redding and remember as a little kid in my front yard jumping on blocks, look as a little kid. And hearing on the radio that Otis Redding was just in a plane crash. And then all of a sudden they said his song, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, just got released. I remember, so whenever I hear that song, I would never forget that. I would never forget, like songs that was sung by Sam Cooke, the great Sam Cooke. A change is gonna come. I will never forget that song during, like watching the civil rights movement and all that kind of stuff as a kid and hearing those songs during that time. So I don't, when it comes to secular or gospel music, what they used to say back in the day, the devil's music,
Okay,
I don't go there anymore.
We made a full circle because this is what we started with. I started this whole thing with telling you that that's my pain and struggle with in Christianity today, in our churches. There's no environment, no platform, no time and place for Christian musicians express all of these things that you just listed. Because me, you, everybody I know, we go through stuff. We go through challenges and tough moments and loss and tragedies. And we want to hear, I want to hear, and I'm pretty sure all of us want to hear songs that are inspired by all these real events, real experiences of our brothers and sisters, Christian musicians. And instead of that, and right now I'm going to sound like a lot of people are probably not going to like this, but all I feel that we go to church today and all we hear is this hallelujah songs. And that's when so many people I know don't want to be part of those churches, don't want to be part of those worship teams, because we're real humans. We experience all kinds of stuff, and all that's allowed in church now is just sing those positive, encouraging songs, which there's nothing wrong with positive, encouraging songs. But what I've been doing lately, and I don't want to talk about it too much now, but I've been studying book of Psalms very, very, very deeply. And the amount of emotions and feelings and a variety of emotions and feelings that I'm finding in the book is, I don't want to go too deep in that, but I basically what I'm realizing that the psalms that we take that that inspire the worship leaders today to write songs, it's like 10% or maybe even less than that of like what David was feeling and expressing. There's all kinds of emotions. There's a list of emotions of anger, lists of emotions of depression and anxiety and fear and all of that. And he's just expressing it. It's right there. I can relate to all of it. And I feel like that's a huge, huge thing that, that's my huge prayer. And I'm planning to do something about it. I have some ideas. I'm already gathering some people together to do something about in Sacramento where we live. When we met, it was probably 2008, I want to say. I auditioned for this cover band called Hip Service, and this was like a very new, like it was a new thing to me. I've never done anything like that. If you remember my audition, when I learned the 6 songs that you guys gave me, and then when I played all of them, Steve asked me, or you asked me, do you know anything else? Do you, like, and you showed me the list of like 70 songs, and you asked, I don't know if you remember that, but when you asked me, do you know any of those other songs just for us to jam? And I said no. And
I remember that.
I think the only song, like I heard like 1 or 2 songs in my life, but I never played any of that. I don't know. Do you remember? Do you actually remember that?
Of course I remember that.
But that was my answer. Like, no, I'm not familiar with any of this.
I remember. Yeah.
But I don't know if you know, if I ever told you this full story. When I came to that studio, I borrowed the keyboard from church because I only had one keyboard. I had to borrow another keyboard. I asked Lincoln if I can use one of the Rolands that were just sitting there, and I didn't have any time. Like it was like super tough, busy season for me, and I didn't have much time to prepare. But I remember like I worked just the time that I had. I worked very hard to get the patches right and the parts right. I remember I can list all of those 6 songs right now that I had to learn. And I don't think I've ever told you this. When I came to the studio, that's when Roland. He was wrapping up.
Right.
He was playing the last couple songs.
Yeah.
And when I heard him play, and I was about to like, to load in and start like setting up. When I heard him play, I went, oh, I should probably just go home. That's what I thought. For real. Like I thought like, this is just pointless, They have people who can actually play, and because he like sounded really good. And,
because he knew everything.
He knew, and I remember when
that's my buddy.
When Steve called me and said that like I got the gig, I remember exactly where I was. I was at the gas station, and I kind of like couldn't really believe it. And then I remember like years later, I can't remember the exact number. You told me how many people you auditioned. Like you told me that you auditioned a bunch of people.
A lot of people.
A lot of keyboard players, which was like crazy and very encouraging for me. But what I was actually going to say, when I was playing that very first show, it was Vegas.
Vegas.
I remember this one thing about you. I remember that when I was playing that show, I felt 2 things about you. Number one is that when you were playing music, you were ministering. You were ministering to me. You were MDing, but and you were actually a huge help. Like it was, I was always tell people like Richard has a gift when he's MDing. You didn't have any mics.
No.
That's what before the mics,
There was
before
no
the
talk
MD
back.
mics, no talkback. But with your expressions, with your face and with your body language, like I got 100% of like all the everything you wanted to tell me
Right.
with your body. I got it. Like
Yeah.
it was very easy to read. It was like actually pretty awesome. But I remember that like, but like I remember watching you, how organic, how like natural you were in that environment, how kind you were, encouraging, loving. And that was the like I grew up in this Christian environment where playing in party bands, there was definitely something like pastors would say like, okay, this is like very dangerous environment and all that. You were ministering to people, you were smiling to people, you were loving on people, on stage and off stage.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, when I played that very first gig, I remember, because I was already married and I had a kid, I remember like going back to the hotel and like and thinking like, okay, my wife should see this, because like I know when she would see you and how you're treating all of this, and how like it's so much, it felt like really weird. It felt like you're that's your ministry. You're playing in this party band, but that's your ministry. You're spreading the love. You're like that spirit of God, the kindness, that what you had. Like I just remember being very excited to call my wife and said, okay, I got in this party band, but the environment is very healthy and it's good for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like very interesting thing to realize for me, because that's not how most people probably feel about it. It's like people who grew up in church. And I think there are a lot of musicians out there that feel weird about being Christians and being part of the entertainment business. I met a lot of people in my life that felt weird about it, that felt like, yeah, if you're a musician, you're this special vessel that you're only allowed to be used to bring God's glory. But the thing is, when I saw you playing in that band, I felt like, okay, this guy is bringing God glory. This guy is actually shining his light. And so that was very, very cool for me to see.
Oh, man. I really, thank you, man.
And we're about to wrap this up. If you would go, if you right now would go to an island for the rest of your life, and you're only allowed to bring 3 records with you, 3 records, 3 CDs. I know you're not prepared for this question, and that's the whole point.
Let me think. That's a tough question.
I know, especially for you.
One of the albums that I would take, it's by Marvin Gaye. What's Going On? That album, and the reason why I would take that album, because that album was created in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when it came out. I remember what he had on. I remember, just being in the neighborhood, hearing it on the radio, and, but I can listen to that album today, and it sounds like the music of now. It's like, it's one of those albums that never grew old, and it was so well put together. And one of my favorite bass players of all time, James Jamerson, was on that album. And to hear the bass line to What's Going On that was played by James Jamerson and was not using any looper or any doll where you just play a few things, how every phrase of that album, that song was completely different. It was nothing that was repeated. It was his album by the Winans. I forgot the name of the album, but
What about it?
it was an album that I played during the beginning of me changing my life around. When I really started getting into the Word of God, whenever I would go and study the Bible, whenever me and my wife and my kids be going to church, the cassette of the Winans would always be in my car.
I know. Third.
It was another gospel album by Al Green, his first gospel album.
I had no idea.
When he gave his life to Christ, he came out with a gospel album, and he had this song called "Nothing But the Righteous." And when I was growing up, my mom used to listen to a lot of Al Green. So when he changed his life around and he came out with that album, it was my mother's favorite album of her favorite singer. Had gave his life to Christ and became a preacher, and he did a incredible gospel album.
That's amazing. Dude, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for doing this. I really enjoyed this conversation, and there was so much depth to everything. And my hope and my prayer is for whoever will be listening to this, just to hear this thing that goes through your life, that like you're a person who, just like everybody else, with challenges, with weaknesses, with doubt, with, you accept Christ and you're angry at your cousin. Like, that's such a cool, honest thing to say, because this is who we are. We're this complex, goofy people. I'm talking about myself.
We're different, man. I don't know what it is.
And just, this is amazing. Thanks so much for your time, and thank you so much for your heart. Thanks so much for your honesty, and this was a gift. This conversation was a gift to me, first of all.
I appreciate it so much because I respect you so much, and I love you so much, you and your family. I remember the day you walked in. I remember the day you, when we did the gig in Vegas with Hip Service, and Hip Service is a huge part of my life. I love Hip Service, and I'm still in there, working with Hip Service. But to see how you wrote everything down and had all your what you call it, patches.
Patch number. Yeah.
That blew my. I talk about it all the time, but no, I just want to let you know, that you have always inspired me. Whenever I see you, when I see you at Bayside, it's just it feels so good to watch you, because it's like watching my little brother, do so well. To see you even when you was touring with Lincoln, it blows me away. And when I see you play over at Venture Church in Yuba City, you know, which is one of my, outside of my church, St. Paul and Center of Praise, but Adventure Church now, I think it's Adventure Bayside.
It is becoming Bayside.
You know, it means a lot to me to see you even playing there. I mean, Adventure is I have a love affair, you know, with Adventure because it's such a great church. Pastor G I love it. And I just get blown away whenever I see you doing what you're doing, like what you're doing now with the podcast. You know, you was a part of Hip Service, and just to see everything that you're doing now in your beautiful family. So thank you. Thank you for having me, man.
Dude, thank you so
really.
much.
Yes, sir.
This is great.
Thank you.